Let's go back to our top story, the terror attacks in Barcelona and in Cambrils. I'm joined by Nuno Pinto. He's the author of The Portuguese Fighters of the Islamic State. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Elaine, for having me.
And Nuno, let's take a look at this investigation. We're still learning more, but do you think that this group of terrorists in Spain were actually connected to ISIL or just inspired by the group? What is the latest with ISIL cells across Europe?
Everything seems to indicate that they are really connected to ISIS, because a couple of hours after the attack, when ISIS claimed the attack, there was a small detail that seems to indicate that connection, because they mentioned that there were several so-called soldiers of the Caliphate performing an attack in Barcelona. And at that particular time, we weren't sure of how many, if one or two attackers were involved. So that seems to indicate that they were well aware of the planning of this attack.
Now, we've seen this over...
And it also follows a pattern of the...
Well, that's right. You were just about to say, you know, we've seen this over and over again. This makes about half a dozen or so vehicle attacks in Europe since this time last year. So will using a car or van remain the method of choice for similar attacks? Will we see this again?
Unfortunately, probably we will, because since 2014, ISIS leaders have been appealing for two things. The first one is for the so-called jihadists to travel to the lands of the so-called Caliphate, to Syria or Iraq. And if they can't perform this travel, they're appealing them to perform attacks wherever they are. And they have been appealing to commit attacks in every way as possible, if by a knife attack, a car attack, and even recently, in the beginning of the month, in the beginning of August, ISIS released a video on their encrypted channels on Telegram, a video of an Australian fighter. It's the second of a series of videos supposedly destined to show the life inside of the Caliphate, in which this Australian jihadist, he concretely appealed of attacks by trucks, by knives, by whatever means is necessary. The important thing is to cause as much harm as possible in the European countries, or Western by that meaning.